Good afternoon, everybody. Finally, all the group of electricians are here. We have come on using electric cars, and we have seen that story of infrastructure because near Zhytomyr there was a blackout, and the charging station was not working, and we even thought to use some wheel saw to cut out the connector because it wasn't coming out. But anyway, we understand how to develop and where should we move. I want to show you the presentation now about the development of electric mobility in the world. And we'll talk about Ukraine from the point of view of software development, production of charging stations. We would like to talk with the manufacturers of electric vehicles, but one of them is now on the stage before you, and another one from Stray Auto Company has gone to Turkey to sell their cars in Turkey. They are not yet selling them in Ukraine, but already planning to sell them in Turkey. But it is also understandable because our market is lower than Turkish one. But I also looked some statistics, and I can tell you there is a very interesting number. In October, Europe, on the rate of development of electric cars, has outdid China. In Europe, the gain of electric cars was 23% to last year, and in China, 22. So 1%, Europe is 1% ahead of China. So we see interesting results. Europe is leading now. China, so it was interesting that the race have changed a little bit. Please do introduce yourself. No, is there anybody who doesn't know me? My name is Vadim Ignatov. I'm the head of the Association of Electric Cars of in Ukraine, and the CEO and founder of the company which plans to revive the LUAZ cars production in Ukraine. Let's come back to global trends. When we were traveling, we discussed what this road sign means. Those who live in Spain, there are 320 euros to pay for this infringement. This sign means no more cars on the diesel engine. And such a sign is now put in all the large cities of Europe, not only large cities, but also in Spain. They have the story to prohibit non-electric car to travel to the center of the city. We are now talking about Europe, and we'll continue to talk about Europe. Not only Europe is there is some interesting indicators. You see what Vietnam created. Over 40% of sales of net electric cars. The world is moving towards that direction. But as a matter of fact, it's moving slowly because we see it. This is a graph of correlation of internal combustion engine cars with with electric cars. So the electric cars have to fight a lot to eat the share of non-electric. You see the percentage of electric cars in the overall fleet. Now in Norway, where they sell 100 of all cars sold are electric, there is only 32% of electric cars. There are rather large number of internal combustion engine cars in Norway. In Ukraine, only 22% of electric cars we have, a little bit lower than averagely in Europe. This we see how the process moves ahead. The net battery electric vehicles, hybrid electric vehicles, and the last column shows the vehicles with extender of the cores of there is an electric generator with no connection to the wheels. Who is ahead of everybody is where Norway is on the top place. You see in October 93.7%. In October 98.4% of all sold cars in Norway were net electric mobiles. It is a result which is difficult to explain how the whole country switched totally to electric cars. It is impressive. Denmark. Also an interesting story here because in the first quarter and in October this month, the Danish made 90% of sold electric cars. USA and Japan are in the rears. Frankly speaking, I don't understand why Japanese do not accept electric cars at all. But why? Maybe some national specifics. What do we see in Europe? 6 European countries already are over 30% of exclusively electric cars sales in the second half of 25. That is Norway, Denmark, Sweden, Finland. We see that mostly the northern countries are there where there is a cold climate and strong colds are there. It disproves, it boosts the myth that it is difficult to use electric cars in the cold climate. But there is also market sizes, and the largest markets by volume is in Germany and in UK. And we see there a strong growth as well. The first half of this year, Germany almost 30%, 39.2, Belgium plus 14, Netherlands plus 5. In UK also about 30%, meaning Europe is growing, and this an indicator I mentioned at the beginning. It overdid even China on the development rates. An interesting story about the rates of development. The Iceland case is interesting. In 23, in Iceland, there was 50% share of electric cars in the market sales, and then they suspended all the benefits for electric cars, and they introduced the so-called road tax, which to pay for electric cars depending upon the mileage, and the sales dropped down a few times, and they have been recovering for 2 years, but now they show rather high rates, 138%. So this was the story of recovery, but the growth rate was low, suspended. The same story waits for us in Ukraine. If the benefits on VAT payment for electric cars will not be continued, we assume there would be a drop, twofold drops. There will be recovery, but we'll lose the rate. And the business of charging infrastructure also impacts on that, but let's talk about it a little bit later. We see that the Europe moves ahead little by little, and that is the share of sales. Turkey is moving ahead little by little. Everybody is coming to that. And it shows such a development rate and the trend for development for the growth of electric mobility. Many manufacturers, also European, resist to electric cars. Mercedes is crying that environmental rules should be improved, should be eased, and Porsche shoot to his feet and say this will reduce production of electric cars. They have sales growth really thanks to electric cars. They have plus 27 electric car sales and minus 8 gas fuel uh, car sales. So I understand why they say will reduce electric cars program. This is a study of World Trade Forum, and it shows that one of the argument the enemies of electric cars says that the jobs will be lost. Like Volkswagen's plant was closed, now Audi plant in Belgium was closed. I talked to the guys from Germany in this forum. They were producing for 38 years one and the same detail for a car, and now they have to close their cars, their plants. And they say, oh, let us close that old story and switch transition to electric cars. This slide shows much more jobs are created than closed, than liquidated in connection to green transition. And I want to finish my speech with a statement by Ursula von der Leyen. And she said in a very convincing manner. Could you switch on the video? Please put on the video. Okay, there are titles. I may pronounce it. We all know the future will be electric. But she also says something more interesting later on. Okay, let us do without Ursula. She says that the future of the European automotive is electric. And she said, we will not let Chinese here, and the electric future of Europe will be European, not Chinese one. And she said it on the 12th of September meeting. And that was the day when once more the intention of EU to prohibit since 35 totally the sales of all internal combustion motor cars in Europe, including the hybrid ones. So Europe has its own way, and on the dynamics of sales, we see they are moving very assuredly that way. What about us? We are not in the arrears. Ukraine shows this year a crazy growth rate, especially in October. I understand why it is so, because everybody now wants to buy a car, an electric car, before it becomes more expensive. Later on, there will be also growth rates, but the gain, October this year, compared to last year's October, is 148%. But no electric car can exist without a charging infrastructure that has to be connected. We have now Oleksandr to talk on this one. Please, from the Ministry of Energy. They have a very ambitious task. They set up a map of where charging stations can be installed on first on all the main highways, and now they have come more in depth, showing in, for example, in all Kirovrad Oblast where charging stations could be installed. It's very interesting information, and the state, on behalf in person of the Ministry of Energy, undertakes to make that audit and say where it's possible to connect electric chargers. As I understand, the Ministry of Energy is in blackout, has no light, yeah? We understand what is the case with the energy in Ukraine if you have no light in the Ministry of Energy. Please tell about the map of charging stations. Yes, we have such a task outlined by the plan of energy area recovery before 30 power recovery. And the task is to find, to create a map for the places which would be favorable to place to deploy charging stations. And we decided to go our own way. We decided to start with international races. And to show also where these stations could be installed on the internal Ukrainian uh, roads. I could, if you can you put the map on the screen now? I would like to explain about it. I believe we have no such opportunity now. I can just say now that on this map there are 4 categories. First one, it is already finished. It goes about international roads. What this map is made of? There are certain components, 3 components. First one, we just click or press certain point in the map, and it means that there is a capacity to install charging stations for electric cars. Where from this data are taken, using our condition, we were able to communicate with our power distribution operators. Oblenergo, they know their own territory in each oblast, they know what can be done in each spot. We have asked them just 2 simple things. First, the location, where exactly they see it's possible to place such charging stations, and for the second, the capacity they are ready to provide, therefore. And our map is split into 4 categories, depending upon the capacity, and it is color marked. The yellow color means up to 500 kilowatts, green color over 1000, so on. When going to our map, you may see what kind of place is it and what capacity, and then know each specific information for each specific location. Talking about continuation of our work, we have not stopped on international highways, roads. We have somewhat less problems. If we look at the overall mass of car roads, we see that the international roads make not very large share. We have many national roads and regional roads, and even less. In each oblast, we have tens of roads, but they are not less important for our population. That's why we decided to continue this deal. We understand that the people likes it. They use the map. About 100,000 views in 1 month. I believe it is a rather successful story for such a relatively new project. And we decided to continue development, updating, modification of our map. And now we are in the process. So everybody can now look on it online. And as Vadim said now, the Kirovograd Oblast is completely ready, and we have also Mykolaiv Oblast available. We have 2 oblasts. split not only by some popular international roads, but also by some more local roads with very different lengths and possibilities for installation of a charging station. So we have gone more in depth, and I hope that towards September we may show the global map, which will be kind of a bridge between operators and Oblenergo, meaning the operators looking at our map will think, oh, I like this location. I'm ready to work here. And having this map, having this information, you can go to the operator and ask details about technical specifications, requirements for connection of a charging station. So we create a tool to put together the business and our Oblenergo companies to develop this infrastructure of charging stations. The project is going ahead rather well, and I hope it will be updated later on. It doesn't mean we'll cover all the oblast and forget about the map. No, we shall ask our operators to update the information. For example, if there is some change, because we have a very dynamic situation now, and we'll update it and to maintain it in the actual state. By the way, now we see this map on the screen, and we see only main highways, main roads, but you can put a tick and then you can show territorial and local roads. Yes, and if you look at the local roads, you can see Mykolaiv Oblast. Yes, we see now, and this is Mykolaiv Oblast. It is yellow. And other capacity. But if we put it closer, you see it will cover not only the global roads, but also the smaller one and of the territorial significance. And I hope that the same will happen all over Ukraine. So we now see possibility of connecting stations which are even in excess of European indicators. According to the relevant directive for deployment of infrastructure of alternative fuels, the charging stations should be installed every 60 kilometers, and here it might be installed each 20 or even 15 kilometers. Yeah, it was also partially my idea because it was an initial benchmark, those 60 kilometers, but our country is rather large in territory, and certain roads are not coming to certain highways are just partially passing through Ukraine. They are just coming to Ukraine and then going back to Europe. So there is not a run of 60 kilometers, maybe 20, but to maintain the repute, there should be something. And also, we are trying to stimulate operators. We are trying to make a maximum of this story somehow. Thank you very much. An interesting story. By the way, I want to underline that this map is a component of the development of the new state strategy for development of a charging infrastructure. And the Ministry of Infrastructure and Development of Communities and Territories, together with the Ministry of Power, is in charge of this project. An interesting question. We have a representative of all to use the operational system for charging stations. At the same time, they support the development of networks. Bohdan Rogalya, the operational director of the company, go to you. Would be interesting to know from him, what does he believe? Will this work help in the installation of new charging stations? And I see here a complicated point, a commercial component, because there are many roads where it's commercially non-profitable to install charging stations because the flow of traffic there is very low. It's interesting to hear from Bogdan what he will say. Welcome, everybody. In my opinion, where there is no that business component to profitability of installing charging station, but the advantage of the Ukrainian market consists in that during the development, the state of other institutions haven't interfered, so we have the better service, much better service than in Europe and some US, etc., because there the state was participating and different grants provided money, and they just asked just to install charging stations. In Ukraine, doesn't matter the map is already developed, we have already the most convenient infrastructure to travel on electric cars. Moreover, taking into account what is made now, moreover, our partners are already using this map for installation of charging stations, and they do consider international and regional roads to build up hubs. About 10 charging hubs. So our partners do build up 10 hubs of total capacity of about 1 megawatt, where alternative energy sources and energy storage devices will be used. Coming back to your question, Vadim, my opinion is everybody will depend upon the capacities to be deployed there, and also near the services and the services near the station. It is a huge work conducted by the Ministry of Energy, but when there is a location, we understand what way a person should pass. That is by out of the land plot, services, coffee, tea, etc. Now, anyway, as of today, we cannot compare a business of charging stations with a traditional fuel stations. But anyway, it will depend upon where the stations will be deployed. For example, the circumventional road around Khmelnytsky, I believe not so many businessmen would like to buy out the plot and to build a charging station there. But Mykolaiv Oblast and Kirovohrad Oblast, it is close to the front line, and it is dangerous from the point of view of stations deployment. I believe it is for the post-war period will be better. In Mykolaiv, we do work with energy companies who supplied about 10 quick charge stations with a capacity of 100 kilowatts, and also they will add few charging stations. Doesn't matter, Mykolaiv is under continuous shelling attacks of our enemies, not neighbors, but the number of charging stations uses shows very high indicators. Over 10,000 kilowatts, those are high indicators which couldn't be achieved in a small in the small towns. But I'm talking about the city of Mykolaiv, Nova Kakhovka, if I'm not mistaken, and the access roads to Mykolaiv show very good results in the sense of loads on the charging stations. Oleksandr, are you with us? Yes, yes, I'm here. I'm not escaping. Okay, I want to thank you for such a huge work, by the way. And I do believe that this work will be very useful exactly after, in the post-war recovery, because we have an significant increase in the electric cars, and this increase continues, this growth of when there will be no more shellings, and there will be no such problems with electric power distribution. This market will grow because really Ukraine has an excessive generation of electric power. In September this year, for example, the export of electric power was even higher than in pre-war time because the main generation in Ukraine is by nuclear power plants. The Russians bombed all the heat stations. They are forcing us to switch to green power, green energy. The distributed generation is developed very quickly, and energy storage systems. And this electromobility and the charging infrastructure combined with alternative sources and the batteries, uh, storage batteries, will give stability to energy system of Ukraine, and stability thanks to its distributed mode of operation. An interesting story is network balancing. Me and Max were together on the in the ESO company who are system integrator of the network, and they were very interested how the network, how the grid may balance the load, not by increasing it, but by reducing, by decreasing it. It's an interesting case. I believe we'll promote this case together with them because it was a surprise for them. And they said, was it really possible to do so? So it is an interesting story. So the charging network for electric cars, even without switching to vehicle to grid technology, already allows to influence on the development of electric network of Ukraine. And I believe the Ministry of Power, it is a special pleasure to hear they do support the development of electromobility, and they do develop the relevant concept. So I believe they will move ahead together with us. Thank you very much, Alexander. I can let you go for you not to sit in the darkness of the Ministry of Power. And I give a spoiler, the next oblast will be Sumy Oblast. It is very important because many people say there is no place to charge. You may look at the map, we'll put it. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for joining. Have a good night and have light. We have another person online, also Alexander. Are you with us, Sasha? Yes. Okay, we can hear you. I'm here. Oleksandr Amelkin. He is the founder and CEO of Energy company, which is now the largest manufacturer of charging stations. Not of high capacity, not of direct country, but alternate current. And these stations are everywhere. At any locations are audited. It's an interesting sign. On our calculation, 80% of all charging stations installed in Ukraine have been manufactured in Ukraine. It's very cool, and we are moving within this process. We have to have Sergiy Velchev here, but he is now in the United States, I believe. And they also do develop this network, and they also are manufacturers. But an interesting story is with another side of the charging infrastructure. It is charging at home, and Alexander is developing on near the home. Alexander develops such stations, and he will tell a couple of words about the novelties they propose to the market. Good evening, everybody. Everybody is now talking about quick charging stations in Jakarta, but there is a big problem. It is charging in those places, in those spots where the electric vehicles are parked. I mean, on the parkings, in the residential complexes, so on. I would even say it should be developed not less intensely than, for example, there are plans for development of quick charging network. Main problem here is exactly small capacity. And we have this challenge. We have technologies for balancing the capacity. If you don't have capacity in a residential facility, in the residential complex, we are ready to give you technology which will allow you to install several charging stations with a total capacity which will be higher than the available one. Thanks to that, everybody is charging at the same time. and have different batteries, types of batteries, different capacities of batteries. So this capacity may be balanced in such a way that the current of the charging stations will be much higher, and it works already. Some residential facilities already have been charged. Those are homeowners associations, and this technology is well fitting them. And we want it to be massive, to be used by everybody. It's very important. In my calculations, it's about 60 to 80% of electric cars are being charged at home in the night. And it is the advantage of electric car. Contrary to internal combustion engine motor car, it may be charged near your home, and you should have relevant charging infrastructure. And the Opta company is successfully solving the problems with insufficient capacities for charging cars at home, and they have multiple solutions. Now, during the blackouts, there can be an inversion to power the flat from electric vehicles through using the same charging station. This solution is very topical, very actual during blackouts in Ukraine. They also developed a new application to operate those stations. It's very good. This business is developed. It is a full-fledged production. They have R&D in Ukraine and production in Ukraine. Sasha, thank you very much. Have a good night. Yeah, I wish you peace and victory. And also, I want to talk about such an interesting story as how to work with a large number of applications, web applications. Now, when we were traveling, we calculated each driver has about 8 different applications on this, and each application has your balance, its deposit, and must calculate how much they are earning on deposits. It's not a deposit, it is a possibility to get a purse inside the application. There is a lot of the applications are now switching to direct payments, and the largest advantage of the purse that doesn't matter what happens, you always have some money on the balance and you can charge. As regards roaming, I want to share information that as of now, our application has largest roaming coverage by partners, about 900,000 charging stations in Europe. And also we are very actively to launch now the full-fledged roaming in Ukraine with certain operators in Ukraine. It is a huge work which was done, and I believe to the end of this month, the first one will be launched where the users of this application will be able to charge. Obviously, it gives additional burden on the system management operation, because the operational activity is the most difficult in the whole process. Yes, it's really so. I want to give the floor now to Max Pavlov. He is a representative of the network of roaming operator 220 kilometers. Strange name, once again. It is due to that Nissan Leaf some time ago. Over one night, you could charge Nissan Leaf for 220 kilometers of course of run. Thank you. I am the CEO and co-founder of 220 Network. We are top roaming network 220. Half a year ago, we started this roaming in Ukraine, and by now already tens of megawatt of hours is our experience. And in mileage is it's already third tour around the years. That's people mileage of the people using our service. I want to now check with you. Would you interested for you to hear how to learn or about the infrastructure, about the blackouts? Who want to hear about blackouts and who want to hear about business? Okay, 50-50. Okay, then let us combine both. Can you launch my PDF to make it more interesting and dynamic? To tell you honestly, I haven't specially prepared to this conference. These are the slides from my work. I have to receive PhD thesis in the Institute of Electromechanics. Let us immerse into the practice. Next slide. It is not Word. Everything began from that in 2014. Shmigal, seems to me, signed the concept of development, and there was going mostly about distributed generation for it not to be destroyable by several missiles, several rockets. And we, together with the energy company of Ukraine, the largest trader for virtual power, is not the trader, integrator and aggregator, a separate category. We started an initiative together with them directed to join our network of charging stations to distributed generation. What is the network of charging stations in Ukraine? Let's look at it. This is a little bit of theory. DTEC, distribution system operator. This is Cornea is DTEC, and there are about 100 companies of distribution systems. They do supply us, they distribute energy to us, and we can buy this energy from different supplier companies like Yasna, Obelenерgo, and now about 5 gigawatts hours commercial one we do sell to electric cars. And now they are buying it not the way we would like them to buy. They are bought at the price. Why this story is very important about this FDN price? There are such periods of time when the price may be 1 kopeck per kilowatt, sometimes 10 kopeck at the night, at the day when there is a lot of solar energy. And many of car testers now say that electric cars are charged at the very small tariff they are stealing from the state. They don't understand that the domestic tariff is already covering all the expenses, but we can charge only when there is no demand on electric power, and it's very important also for stabilization of the market itself, because when there is no demand, the prices drop and people are not earning. When they are not earning at night, they are earning at day. So the price during the daytime can be 50-70 hryvnias per kilowatt, because the average margin should be maintained there in the business process. And this story of that networks goes to the within to the distributed network is very important. Now let us come to the that spot where the business is to provide for stability of power in Ukraine. We have such a slide. To the left, it shows 0 hours at night, and to the right, 11 p.m. late at night, and the center, noon time. is the peak of consumption by our stations, 2.5 gigawatts a month. And you see by sessions, charging sessions, everything is very predictable. 12 o'clock or noon, where there's a lot of sun, you see this viola color columns, DC stations, and the blue are the AC stations. The idea is very simple. Where there is a lot of energy and it is cheap, the consumption for electric car consumers is higher. So we have to sell electric car owners this power at lower price for them to charge more to balance the network. The physics of the process is such we may not store this energy somewhere as this energy is just sewed down to the water reservoirs of nuclear stations to heat the water in those storage reservoirs. The idea is we may sell this energy at low price to the electric car owners and thereby balance the electric grid of Ukraine to reduce the blackouts. Thank you very much, Max. This idea is already working on certain stations. They have provided a dynamic tariff for charging. There may be such periods of time when one station nearby has 18 hryvnias per kilowatt and they have 9 hryvnias kilowatt and they have a queue and the load of the stations thanks to this dynamic tariff. If we scale up all this story to the entire country, we'll have both energy balancing such positive improvement and profit for electric car owners. So let us work towards this. It is interesting. It is developing interestingly. I believe Bohdan also has to say something about balancing. The especially interesting story is about your megawatt charging hubs with large energy storing devices, systems. They are not ours. We are providing software for them. Our partners are building them. It will work in such a way that our partners plan to go to RDN. They will buy energy at night at the cheapest tariff to have the most efficient business scheme of the activity. In the morning, when the tariff will increase, they will sell this energy from the storage by the capacity 1 to 3 megawatts. And then in the early time, when there will be not yet sun, they will give it to the charging stations at such location as Zoom, and there are about 500, about 1000 kilowatts of solar energy. So at daytime, when there is sun shining, they take power from renewable energy sources, and in some locations, if it will be possible, they do plan to install gas piston devices to generate power. The most expensive there is a grid connection. It is wonderful that in the recent times our partners found additional sources of financing the charging stations. In Citadel in Kiev, there are charging stations installed supported by European Union. There will be new projects supported by EU by financial support. It's wonderful. Different countries find the possibilities to support us, and a certain number of facilities already was successfully installed. Okay, thank you very much. We'll be waiting for megawatt hubs near Lviv. By the way, all the charging stations near the mall Victoria Gardens about 1 megawatt, and near Toyota Lexus and Business Center, there is the first, the most powerful charging stations in Lviv Oblast, 320 kilowatts, and this hub will grow. And there is another one in Krivchitsi. Our partner installed charging station 240, and the next one will be 320 kilowatts. They may be referred as inside the city hub. It's very cool that you are developing and moving ahead, but any movement ahead is not possible without a service. I believe here we do have representatives of automotive business. They understand the service makes 50% of all the vehicle business. It's a very important component. Same story exists in the charging infrastructure because the charging station, one deal is to install it, and then some guys are coming with a circular saw. You will see in Instagram how they have cut out the connector. It was a joke video, but a very smart one. And what I'm talking about, the service of charging stations, installation of charging station is now separate out as a separate business. And we have a representative of such a business now with us, Oleg Filomonyuk from the company EcoStatus, the Lviv company, which is dealing with installation of charging stations. It's very nice, and I believe he will share his experience of cooperation with eventually all the operators. He manages to cooperate almost with all the operators in Ukraine. This is a very nice business case. Thank you. It's my special pleasure to hear that there exists nothing without a service. Also, 4 years ago, everybody was talking service is not needed, and we'll have no charging in Russia, we'll have no electric cars. But everything happens quite reversely. And I passed here from the other direction, international transports, but I have built up it from the very beginning. If the boys know open technology, how the application is working, what are the new inventions and those then I don't know how it works technically. And from the very beginning, what is needed to install a station, what technical parameters to take into account, what cars will be charged there, what are the technical facilities, technical possibilities in the location, and we are implementing it together with the team. The company EcoStatus with its own brand was established. What can I say? The service requires large attention, and I may cooperate with different providers and operators because they go to our company and recommend each other, and it allows the service company to develop, and I'm building up my network of charging stations, and I see all this business, everything that is done, that happens in the market from inside on all the steps, on the stages of development of the charging infrastructure. Yeah, I want to say that this do see example of how the electric cars, a quick development, and there are new opportunities. And I always write in Facebook and I tell everybody the development of electric cars shouldn't be regarded from the point of view of only sales of the car. And it goes about installation of charging stations, service of charging stations. Sometime we'll come to the manufacturing of electric cars in Ukraine. I do believe that this story will have such a good substrate, such a good platform, which is now in Ukraine. It is perception of electromobility by Ukrainian public society. It's a pleasure to see that there are more and more electric cars. Also, in percentage, it makes just 2% in the fleet, but you can see in large cities big numbers of electric vehicles. Here in Lviv, seems each third car is electric. And it would be nice to have each second one to be electric car. Not only electric cars, not only the sales is developing, it altogether is a large sphere, large sector of industry, a component of them. industry in Ukraine, and it is a driver of development. And it's my pleasure to say we are among the leaders of European electric car markets. And I think that thanks to the joint efforts of operators, dealers, not all the dealers, some dealers are against electromobility, and manufacturers, I believe, will move ahead further. Even doesn't, in spite of that some benefits, some privileges for electric car selling. Well, I'm sure a good future is expected for is waiting for the electric cars in Ukraine. I mean, if you have any questions, you can ask them. I want to say is that dinner in one of the best restaurants of Lviv is waiting for us, and all the questions because it is a live Vadim Ignatov. I want just to add on my behalf, we have just come back from Rebuild Ukraine, and colleague approached me who also wants to cooperate with our cluster, and his idea was he has a development how to convert a combustion engine car to an electric one. Very interesting topic. Thank you very much for your panel discussion. Especially bow to you for suffering such adventurous whilst traveling to us, but you came to us and you have jumped to the stage. It is one of the story of resilience. Thank you very much. Let's applaud to you. For any questions, uh, we have another panel discussions, and you may ask your questions in the restaurant informally. Thank you. And now I want to introduce to you our next final panel discussion.